Have you ever just stared at a massive to-do list, completely frozen, wondering where on earth to even start? Well, it turns out that exact feeling is one of the biggest challenges in business. Today, we're going to dive into job scheduling and figure out why deciding what to do first can literally make or break a company's success.
Okay, let's make this real. Imagine you've got 5 different assignments. One is super quick, maybe 20 minutes. Another is for that class that just melts your brain. One is due tomorrow, sharp. One is a huge project, and one just landed in your inbox. So, what's the move? Do you knock out the easy one for that quick hit of dopamine, or do you jump on the one with that terrifying deadline?
You know, that little internal debate you just had, that is exactly what managers and planners face every single day, just on a much, much bigger scale. And in the world of operations, this whole process has a name: job sequencing. It's the art and science of putting things in the right order to get the best results.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll unpack the problem itself. Then, we'll look at the simple rules managers use. Think of it as their toolkit. After that, we'll figure out how you even measure if a schedule is good. Then, we'll match the rules to the right goals, and we'll wrap it all up with a final scorecard.
All right, let's kick things off with part 1, the scheduling problem. We're going to see why the order you pick really matters.
So the official definition of sequencing is actually pretty simple. It's what you do when you have a bunch of jobs waiting for the same resource, like a machine or a person or even just your own attention. You have to decide which one gets to go next. It's basically managing the line or the queue for everything that needs to get done.
And let me be clear, this isn't just about being neat and tidy. The sequence you choose has a direct and often massive impact on the bottom line. We're talking about real money here. It affects costs, your ability to hit deadlines, how much cash you have tied up in stuff that isn't finished yet, and the overall productivity of your entire operation. Getting this wrong is expensive, period.
So if the stakes are that high, how in the world do you make these choices? Well, that brings us to section 2. You don't just guess. You use a toolkit of simple but really powerful rules.
These are called priority rules. Now, the most important word on this slide is heuristics. That's a fancy way of saying these are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb. They aren't some super complex mathematical formula that guarantees a perfect answer every time. Instead, they're practical, easy-to-use guidelines for making quick, consistent decisions in a complex world.
Let's look at 2 of the big ones. You've got first come, first served, or FCFS. It's what we see at the deli counter. It feels fair, right? But what happens if the first person in line has a monster of a job? While everyone else just sits there waiting, creating a huge bottleneck. On the flip side, you have shortest processing time, or SPT. This rule is a powerhouse for efficiency. You just knock out the quickest jobs first. But there's a catch. What happens to that really big, important job? It could get pushed back again and again and again.
So, here are the 3 main players we're going to focus on. You've got FCFS, which is all about the perception of fairness. You have SPT, which is totally focused on efficiency and getting things done fast. And then you have EDD, or earliest due date. And as the name implies, this one's laser focused on one thing: hitting your deadlines.
Okay, but if you pick one of these rules, how do you actually know if it's working? How can you tell if it's better than another one? To do that, we need a way to keep score. We need a performance scorecard.
It seems like such a simple question, right? How do we know if a schedule is actually good? But it's so important. You can't just rely on a gut feeling when you're dealing with customer commitments and a ton of money on the line. You need cold, hard data.
And here's where that data comes from. These are 4 key metrics. First, job flow time. Think of this as the total time a job is in your system from the moment it arrives to the moment it leaves. Then you have job lateness. Pretty straightforward. How late is it? Third is work in process, or WIP. This tells you how many unfinished jobs are clogging up the system. And finally, there's make span, which is just the total time it takes to finish every single job on your list.
Okay, so we've got our rules, and we've got our ways to measure success. You can probably see where this is going. It's time to connect the dots and match the rules to the goals, using the right tool for the right job.
And this is probably the single most important takeaway from all of this. There is no single best rule that works for every situation. The right choice depends completely on what you are trying to accomplish. What is your number 1 priority?
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. If your main goal is to be super efficient, to minimize the average time every job spends in your shop, then the shortest processing time rule is mathematically proven to be your best bet. But if your biggest nightmare is having even one job be catastrophically late, maybe it costs you a huge client, then the earliest due date rule is what you need. It's your safety net.
To make this all feel a little less abstract, let's use an analogy that I think we can all relate to: the checkout line at a busy grocery store.
Think about it. If the store's main goal is just pure speed, to get as many people through the lines as possible, what do? Boom, they open an express lane for people with just a few items. That is shortest processing time in action. But what if the goal is to prevent a disaster? If you're the cashier and you see someone whose ice cream is literally melting into a puddle on the floor, you might just wave them to the front of the line, right? That's earliest due date. You're preventing the worst-case scenario.
Okay, let's bring it all together for our final section. We're going to do a quick recap of everything, and then we'll do a little reality check.
Here it is, the final scorecard. This is your cheat sheet. If you need productivity and efficiency, SPT is your best friend. It minimizes flow time and the amount of stuff just sitting around. If you absolutely cannot miss deadlines, EDD is the rule for you, since it minimizes how late any one job can be. And good old HEFCFS, well, it doesn't really optimize any of the key numbers. But hey, it's simple and it feels fair to everyone.
Now for that reality check. These rules and models are fantastic for understanding the trade-offs. But, as I'm sure you've already guessed, the real world is a whole lot messier.
In a real factory or a real office, you have constant chaos. Jobs take longer than you thought. Machines break down. People call in sick. And on top of that, jobs often have to go through multiple different steps on multiple different machines. It makes finding that one perfect schedule almost impossible.
And that really leads us to the final question to think about. When you're dealing with all of that real-world chaos, can one simple rule, like SPT or EDD, ever really be enough? Or is the true skill of scheduling knowing how to blend these rules, when to adapt, and sometimes even when to break them, just to keep things moving forward?